They came ashore under the burning sun, leather and steel, chainmail and banners. Crusaders, worn and weathered from years of blood and sand, set their eyes on Acre, one of the last great strongholds in the Levant. But behind the clamor of swords and siege towers, behind the chants of priests and the cries of the wounded, something else stirred within the walls of that cursed city. A secret, a ritual, a darkness that has never made it into the history books, and perhaps for good reason. This is the story of Acre, not as it was written in the chronicles of knights and kings, but as it was whispered in the shadows of cloisters, in letters burned by candlelight, and in confessions that never reached the ears of the papacy. What happened in Acre was more than war. It was more than conquest. It was something else. To understand it, we must return not just to the siege itself, but to the minds of the men who led it, and the madness that began to take root when steel met flesh, and God's silence echoed over a city drenched in blood. In the year 1291, the last Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land was on the brink. Acre, once the jewel of Latin Christendom in the East, now stood as a lonely outpost surrounded by enemies and haunted by its own ghosts. The Mamluks, under Sultan al-Ashraf Khalil, were preparing their final assault. But the knights within, Templars, Hospitallers, Teutonic warriors, refused to abandon it. They believed God would intervene, that some miracle would save them. But in the weeks before Acre's fall, strange things began to happen. It began with the fires. Not the fires of siege weapons or torched homes, but something far more deliberate. Witnesses, mostly civilian survivors who escaped by sea, spoke of small groups of knights venturing into the ruined parts of the city after dark, carrying torches, chanting in Latin, their voices hollow and without rhythm. Then, without warning, entire quarters would be set ablaze. But no one screamed. No one ever emerged from the flames. It was as if the fire was part of something ritualistic. Then came the disappearances, not of soldiers, but of priests. At least 4 Dominican and Franciscan friars went missing in the span of 8 days. Their chambers left in perfect order, their belongings untouched. But their holy texts, especially the ones on prophecy, demonology, or apocalyptic writings, gone. One Templar scribe, Brother Godfrey of Blois, recorded in a private letter later recovered in Cyprus. The brethren whisper of a gathering, a secret rite. They say the true ark is beneath the temple mount, and that Acre shall awaken it. I dare not believe. Of course, such writings are easily dismissed. Medieval superstition, the ravings of desperate men in a dying city. But there is more. In 1814, during renovations of a former church in Acre's old quarter, workers uncovered a crypt sealed with iron bands and strange markings. Inside were 12 stone chairs arranged in a circle, and in the center a pit, shallow, but stained with something dark and flaking. Later tests would confirm traces of iron, copper, and hemoglobin. Blood. There were no inscriptions, no crosses, no signs of Christian worship, just the 12 seats and the pit. This discovery never made it into Israeli archaeological records. It was quietly removed. Rumor has it that the church was demolished within the year, and the site paved over. But photos survive. Copies, passed between hands like cursed objects. And in one, barely visible in the grain, is a figure carved into one of the chairs. A man with no eyes, holding a book upside down. But back to 1291. The Mamluks breached the outer walls on May 18th. Chaos reigned. Civilians rushed to the docks. Soldiers fought room by room. And then, the Great Fire. Every account of Acre's fall mentions it. A blaze so intense it lit the night sky for miles. Some say it was the Mamluks, setting fire to storehouses. Others insist it came from the Crusader quarter itself. But one Genoese sailor wrote something else. The smoke was sweet. It was no ordinary burning. It smelled of myrrh and wine, and I heard chanting like monks, but the words were wrong, twisted. This fire engulfed the eastern quarter of the city, including a forgotten chapel once used by the Templars. That chapel has never been found. Some believe it was destroyed completely. Others believe it still lies beneath the rubble, its secrets buried in ash. Here's where the story fractures. The Templars claimed a group of their own vanished that night. Dozens of knights, all veterans, all sworn to secrecy under the rule. Their names never listed, their armor never recovered, as if they simply walked into the fire and were consumed. But why? What could drive holy warriors, trained in discipline and duty, to commit such an act? Some suggest a kind of mass suicide, a last rite to purify themselves before death. Others whisper of something darker, an ancient belief, hidden within the Templar ranks, that true power could be summoned at the moment of ultimate sacrifice. The Black Benediction, it was called, a ritual rumored to be older than Christianity, hidden in the apocryphal scrolls brought back from the First Crusade, supposedly involving the blood of 12, the burning of sacred oil, and the recitation of a reversed prayer beneath the eye. That last part, beneath the eye, is what caught the attention of modern scholars, because in that sealed crypt discovered in 1814, the ceiling bore a carving, a single open eye with no pupil. The Templars have long been associated with mystery, with treasure, with secrets. But what if the real secret wasn't gold or relics? What if it was knowledge? Forbidden knowledge of rites, rituals, ancient powers lost to time? The Vatican, for its part, has never commented on the events at Acre, nor on the sealed Templar records that remain locked away in Rome, despite multiple modern petitions by historians and researchers. But one document, partially leaked in 2003, hinted at something chilling. It referenced the last canticle of Acre, a liturgical poem written in cipher, hidden in the margins of a surviving Templar manuscript. When decrypted, it read, "12 will kneel where stone once bled. The fire shall cleanse, the dark be fed. The silent one shall hear our cry, and Acre's soul shall never die." It ends with the Latin word, obscurum, the dark. No one knows what became of those nights. No one can say for certain what was done in the final hours before the Mamluks overran the city. But the fire, the crypt, the missing friars, and the silent Vatican archives all point to something far more sinister than a mere military defeat. Acre fell. The Crusader dream in the Holy Land died with it. But something else may have been born that night. Something that still lingers beneath the stones, in the ash, and in the stories that no historian dares to write down. Maybe they fear ridicule, or maybe they know the truth. History is written by the victors, but the forbidden truths, they are whispered by the survivors, passed in secret, buried in darkness. So next time you walk the ruins of Acre, listen. Listen closely. You might hear the echo of that chant, twisted Latin carried on the wind, and smell the faint scent of wine and ash, because some rituals never truly end.